Ladies and gents, welcome back to the show, part number 2. And we've still got Todzilla, Todd Hutchings, in the mother fluffing house. And it's Paul Linn. I forgot to say, as not being a YouTube expert, but if you love what we do, like, share, and subscribe. How's that, guys? Professional.
And leave your comments below.
Hey, leave them below. Unless they're really nasty. Anybody know what a transition
Then put them up near the top. Put them in, type in all capital letters because it means more then.
It's funny because I'm just trying to learn about YouTube now. And a guy said, nice transitional lenses, loser.
What are you transitioning into?
I don't even know whether to be offended. I have no idea what that is. Does anybody know what a transition? Leave your comments below if you know what a transitional lens is and why I'm a loser.
It's what Bruce Jenner did. When Bruce Jenner transitioned, he got glasses.
Yeah. I was okay, and then instantly a tosser because I had bad transition.
Right.
Awesome.
I get help for background noise all the time. I get ripped in the comments for background noise. I'm like, dude, I got 1,000 subscribers. I'm sorry. I'm not ready yet. When I make it down, I'll fix the background noise.
Yeah, somebody said to me the other day, they said, oh, get a good editor. And I'm like, you're looking at him. Seriously, I am that guy. So, yeah, any abuse in that respect, I'll take it right on my fat face, because that's definitely me. Anyway, back to arm wrestling, which is what we came on here for. We were talking about the World Arm Wrestling League a couple of weeks ago, myself and a mate of mine. And he said, you know what? It'd be really good if you got some new blood in there, if we got new pullers in there that nobody's seen before. And I was thinking, is that the case, or do you think the guys that are on the roster now are representative of truly the best in the individual weight classes? When you look at that, guys, do you think they are? Do you think the guys that are in those weight classes are the very best that North America has to offer? Or do you think there's guys out there that we should, because everybody throws names in there. If we look at lightweight, it's people like recurring themes. Ezzy Worden gets thrown in there. Greg Gray gets thrown in there, who's obviously rock strong. Corey Miller. Do you think that the best guys are already in the World Arm Wrestling League, or do you know?
Go ahead, Paul.
I mean, I think obviously styles make matches. So are there guys that are not on the roster who can beat certain guys that are on the roster? Without a doubt, like 100%. And I think the big thing that we're missing, the W.A.L has evolved into something that is not tournament arm wrestling. It's not something you see in a bar room. It's production quality, it's growth, it's representation of something that is to come in the future. And there has to be a point in which you evaluate from a business perspective which human beings you want to represent your league. And oh, by the way, they have to also be able to win arm wrestling matches too. I think simple things as far as marketability and articulation are not as important as arm wrestling skill, but they have to be factors when you're dealing with a business that makes money or doesn't make money. Mm-hmm. So I do think, in short, I think that right now, most likely for the largest part, the best are represented currently. If you're looking at all factors, are there more people out there that could join the roster? Without a doubt, for sure. But like the things that are going on right now with like Eddie Hall and these internet celebrities or the internet famous people, they're getting a lot of heat in the arm wrestling community, which I believe is 100% unfounded. If everyone would take a step back and look at the big picture, they would realize that these people are going to help usher in new arm wrestling. And the only reason that you wouldn't want to do that is if you want to keep our sport small. And I think that's narrow-minded thinking, and I think we need to be progressive in everything we do. And I think we're on the right path.
Have you guys, or would you say that the World Arm Wrestling League, certainly within North America, has brought a lot of new pullers to the sport? Do you think that there's been a real upsurge in that respect?
I do. I think it's brought new people into the sport. I also think it's teaching them, all these amateurs, how to King's move, which is nothing I would advocate for. But back to your previous question, there's probably a lot of people in North America, or there's probably a lot of people outside the Russia, Ukraine, Poland, Bulgaria
Mm-hmm.
axis that could come in. But I don't think outside of those countries there's anybody we could bring in that's going to beat Michael Todd, Jerry Cataract, or Devin Lorette. I don't think there's anybody that's going to beat RVJ, Paul Linn, or Bishop. There's probably people we can add to the middleweight class, but they're not going to beat Gabby, Sarah, or like Nancy Locke or Angela. I think we've got the best people. You know, Sam Harris, Jeff Hale, Jamie Sheldon, Adam. I don't think you're going to add any lightweights that beat them, but you could add a whole bunch of lightweights that might threaten them in a year or two. Except, of course, Danny Tesh, who would win all 4 of those weight classes.
Yeah, he would.
As far as the growth goes, just to give you like a real-time snapshot into what's going on in arm wrestling right now. I've practiced up in Scranton with Storm for quite some bit. We have a warehouse facility up there, which is actually like kind of like one of those clubs that you would talk about. Mm-hmm. And normally when we host a big practice, you get 20, 30 guys. We got the whole coronavirus nonsense scare going on around here. And we had over 60 arm wrestlers come to practice. Unbelievable. We had 7
solid.
We had children, unbelievable. And I believe wholeheartedly it's because we are spiking. The sport is spiking right now. Mm-hmm. You can choose to discredit it or not believe it, but the numbers really don't lie. Our tournaments in the Northeast are insane now. We can't get them done in one day. We have to do 2-day events. So
I mean, that's mega. Yeah. It's funny. I had John Brzezinski on here the other day, and we were talking about that exact thing, the rise of the sport at the moment. Obviously, if you look back to sort of the late 80s, there was Over the Top, which brought it sort of peaked, but I described it as like a signal flare. It went out there, it was done, things filtered off it, but the fizzle was gone. It burned away. I think right now there's sort of there's a level, and it's a level which is continuous. It's like everybody's expecting that. You know, you've got the PAL doing the top 8 on the one side of the Atlantic. World Arm Wrestling League, very different look, but doing its thing in North America. And you've also, I think that's breeding a set of tournaments and events which are almost shaping themselves towards fitting one look or another, like the Cock of the Walk, you know, things like that are sort of just springing up and facilitating a certain environment for arm wrestlers. Because you get a lot of guys that say, oh, I don't like super match pulling. I don't like, I like tournaments. It should be like it was. Sort of like, that dyed in the wool, I want to do that for the rest of my life guy, which is fine. Do you guys enjoy tournaments more than super match, or do you prefer the one-on-one format?
Todd, I'll let you go on that first. You got more experience.
They're different. I train completely different for them. I thought when it's a tournament puller, I'll spend a lot more time on the table. If it's a super match format, I spend a lot less time on the table, but it's, I think I prefer the super match format, but I got nothing against the tournament pullers. You just got to approach it differently because it's a lot longer. You basically pull 6 matches, whether it's a tournament or a super match, but you got to pull a lot. You got to be a lot more diversified in a tournament, and you got to have a lot more stamina because that tournament takes all day long, especially to put an intermission in it,
Mm-hmm.
Whereas a super match, it's still 6 matches basically, but they're close enough together. So you probably don't need as much work capacity. You probably just need a whole bunch more peak power.
What about the experience from an arm wrestler's perspective? Because you hit the nail on the head there. And I've always been the arm wrestling geek. I love this. It's in my DNA. So, you go to the World Championships, you got like 4 days of competition, sometimes 5. I'd be there at 8:30 in the morning and leave at 10 at night. I'll watch every goddamn match, and that's just, it's in me. But most people don't want to do that. From an arm wrestler's perspective, do you get the same buzz, the same enjoyment out of going and pulling one guy that's going to last 15 minutes and everybody's out of the venue in 3 hours? Or do you think that something's lost there in terms of the environment and the day, the experience?
I'm glad you asked that first question because I just took notes from Todd as to how to prepare for my next match. So I'm going to be doing a little bit more gym time. But anyway, I personally, I'm like you, Neil. I watch the whole thing. I enjoy the environment and I love it. However, when it comes to like a spectator perspective, I think that's what we need to keep in mind. Nobody wants to sit around for 8 hours or 12 hours as far as spectation goes. But the experience for me as an arm wrestler, the anticipation is almost even longer, and you get to enjoy and see and kind of get in your mode. I love tournaments, but I'm so green and so new that I'm just transitioning into super matches. But I think when you look at it once again from that business perspective, like, what is the audience seeing? The audience wants to see a fight card the same as they see a UFC fight card. There's benefit in the beginning of the UFC where it was tournament style, but you can't make guys do that necessarily. You can't make guys have 6 super matches in one night, so it's not really viable. Look at how UFC and MMA transitioned into kind of like the Bellator super heavyweight tournament, just like Top 8 now.
Yeah,
we're looking at a tournament bracket that progresses along, but it does it over time.
Mm-hmm.
I like that concept a lot. I don't know what's on the horizon, but that would be a pretty cool thing for W.A.L down the road. Like a tournament super match bracket would be pretty cool.
That would take place over so the tournament would last for a long period of time. It wouldn't be a one day, or it'd be, you are following a season of super matches which get you to somewhere. Okay. Now, just to pick up on one point there, when I sort of started, I think I was responsible for the first super match series in the sport that I'm aware of. And that was in 1992 with the Iron Arm and the Arm Wars when we started them off. Now, one thing I will say with absolute certainty, when I went that route, when we started doing one-on-one, the opportunity to attract sponsorship and televisual interest was definitely at a different level. Like overnight. I was going seeing people, and straight away, whether it was just the familiarity with what they knew from combat sports, I really don't know. But without that sort of marketing of a character, so the guys not being able to say, well, who's going to be in, who's going to face who, they just didn't want to know. It switched people off in that respect. I couldn't get anywhere near. The only sponsors prior to that were venues who, come and do your tournament here, that kind of thing. But if you tried to get it on TV, they just didn't want to know. There was no real longevity in that respect. Do you think that the super match arm wrestling, therefore, has really created that buzz and that movement in the sport?
100%.
I do, because it makes everybody more recognizable myself.
Mm-hmm.
So I like the super match format. I think lends itself, because it has a clear beginning and an end to it. It's hard to film. Even people like Gary Roberts and Ryan and Artem Taranenko down in Florida who film tournaments. It's hard to watch a video of a tournament and try and keep it chronologically straight in your head, just because the matches are up and down and you can't track who's who, and it's you'd almost need a complete scoreboard off to the side so that you can follow where everybody's at. Where at least the super match, people can kind of understand there's 2 people. One guy's going to be up, the other guy's down. But in a tournament, it would take some massive video editing to present a tournament in a coherent way that somebody could follow.
Well, the big thing too, along with that, is character development. You touched on that. So, like I said, I'm a big MMA fan. I don't necessarily root for or bet on the guy that I think is the best fighter. I might be betting on his backstory. I might be betting on his personality. I might be rooting for an opponent, rooting for a guy because I don't like his opponent. It's more personal for me when I get involved, when I'm tracking MMA and the fight sports in general. Boxing's the same way. And I look at UFC and what they've kind of done with the Ultimate Fighter show. They're developing their stock and they're building their personality and allowing their fighters to build their brand kind of on a smaller stage. And then you watch those guys progress, and you can think back to those early days when they were, in the novice amateur ranks. That's why I like the idea of these, the progression and the development along the way. I think that the World Arm Wrestling League right now, aside from Top 8, we already know everything about those guys for the most part already. But the World Arm Wrestling League is doing a great job of that. And I think the more you do of that, the more you bring the sport mainstream.
I think you make a really good point there, Paul. I mean, like yourself, I love the fight sports, always been a heavy supporter of all combat sports and strength sports. But you watch a UFC card, and you're usually watching that card for a couple of fights, 2 or 3 fights. And the funny thing is, everybody fast forwards through the prelims to get to that fight you want to watch. You know what I mean? Yeah, in an ideal world, everybody watches, and sometimes there's some great fights on there. But if you don't know who's fighting, you're not emotionally attached to that, you know?
Right.
And I think that's a critical point for arm wrestling. Without knowing who's competing, you're not emotionally involved. You're not invested in the match. You don't care. Soon as you know who it is, makes the match better.
What makes you tune in? Now, listen, I've been watching boxing my whole life. And I vowed many, many years ago to never buy another Floyd Mayweather pay-per-view ever. And since I vowed that, I think I bought his next 10 fights, just hoping he was going to lose. And I'll never get that $1,000 back. But you know, that's a huge deal.
It's in his chinchilla jacket right now.
Yeah, he's carrying around the bag right now, $1 million, carrying it to the mall. But I tuned in, and that's all that matters. So there's value in every perspective of a person's character too. There's going to be good guys, bad guys. There's going to be things that you like about people or dislike. It really all comes down to marketability. And then when you put two of those characters against each other, rather than throwing two of them in a large tournament where they could get lost in the sauce, it's a whole different animal.
It's funny. There's a lot of criticism. They'll say, "Oh, you get people saying, oh, World Arm Wrestling League are only interested in characters. They're only interested in gimmick." It's just not the case. Not even close.
It's not gimmick. And like I said, the entrance of Eddie Hall is huge. The guy is a huge personality. The guy is the strongest man on the planet. And I believe he's not competing anymore too. So he's not running as much a huge of a risk. We were actually talking about this the other day. Storm and I were talking about one of his opponents throughout his career in Brian Shaw.
Yeah.
Brian Shaw has dabbled into some grip stuff, and he's crossed over into guys like the world of guys like James Rederitis and Juji Mufu. Mm-hmm. And I think he's been on arm wrestling table. He's a guy I would love to see, and I think he potentially could even cause an actual threat in a short period of time.
I've actually arm wrestled Brian.
Have you? How'd that go?
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't know what he's doing, so it's not a fair comparison. What I would say is you can feel the threat he could pose if he had the slightest idea of what he was doing. You know, he just doesn't. He's it's like a giant engine with tiny tires. You know, he's just not getting the rubber on the road. But if I had him for 6 months,
right. We watched the video where this guy, and I don't know how familiar you are with grip and everything. I'm sure you are. The inch dumbbells, right? They're like 100.
Storm.
Brian Shaw kicks them things up and incline presses them for reps. Did you see that video?
I mean, comedy.
Unbelievable.
That's a freak.
I mean, he said at the end of the video, he's challenging somebody to do something similar. And Storm actually can double deadlift them, but without his thumb, which Brian can't do. So he can double deadlift him and farmer's walk him. He's like the only guy on the planet who's ever done it. Mm-hmm. So I think Storm's going to work his way towards that challenge that Brian Shaw put out for the double inch incline. We'll see.
Well, it's great, that kind of thing, because it gets the forums, the chat rooms, you know, everybody goes nuts online, and the digital era, that's what keeps this thing buzzing.
And strongman is a little bit further for sure than arm wrestling is. So when guys like that dig into it, like a world's strongest man, you build a platform for growth for arm wrestling.
Long may it continue. I mean, we're like you say, we're in a position now where the sport's bigger than it's ever been, guys. And we're heading into the 600 series for World Arm Wrestling League. We're heading into the top 8 for the Professional Arm Wrestling League. So many tournaments week after week. We really just got to pray that coronavirus doesn't put the brakes on everybody. Lads, thanks so much for coming on, for giving up your time. I've kept you on here long enough on your Sunday. But again, guys, if you like what we're doing, please like, share, subscribe, let everybody know about it. And remember, pick up your Vector shirts, and we'll see you again. Fellas, thanks a lot.
Bye.